I'm back with the final video for our knit along on this Tweel Brim hat. And what we're going to do in this video is I'm going to show you how on this little demo how we're going to remove the provisional cast on and then fold our brim. Again, your brim will be longer. You're gonna create about this much of the tweed pattern for the brim, but I just did a little bit so we have this teaching video. And I'm gonna show us how we're going to fold and bring these stitches onto a needle, those provisional stitches, and then add join together so that we can change needles and knit the rest of our hat. Now, before we do that, I just wanted to follow up with the last video and kind of show you how the placement of the, remember I talked about the placement of the working tails of yarn, and sort of, so green, how we place them. And so, for example, green was, currently I'm working on natural colors, so that's to the right. And then the color I did just before that got moved over to the far left, which then meant the color before that, progressed toward the right, so that, when I'm done with this color, then it would be the plum again, and that would, the succession of moving everything to the right as you work. Now, I just wanted to show you how this works with the, how nicely, you see how nicely that little join is happening there? And yeah, so you can't hardly even see it. Now remember in the beginning where we were starting, there's a wee bit little hole, and that's because, we have those early on tails. Now if you were on your original project and this was all going to be visible, you would weave your ends in such that they'd go this direction and fill in those holes. So, but we don't have to do that here because we are going to, fold this brim and you're not even going to see that. So what happens then after you do this little method of when you switch colors, so let's just do that. I'm at the end of the cream, and then that puts the green in the center and nothing is twisted. It meant that my cream color, my natural color thread or yarn is now crossing over the top in the back of my new working yarn. And then again, I do what I'm supposed to do with the color. In this case, it would be 2 knit stitches and the slip stitch. And you see there's a wee little gap as I've gone farther, but now what I'm able to do is come back to this back and pull both the green and the natural. The green was a couple rows down, and the natural, and then look, that snugged that right back up. And so that's why when you cross in the back like this, you're going to make a really nice closure, and with no gaps. Okay, so that was just a little bit of wrap up on that. And next we're going to move into now getting these provisional stitches off so that we can put them on our smaller needles. So this was the smaller needle. And then I'll show you how you knit these two, fold our brim and knit them together. Okay, well, we're ready to work this provisional cast on so that we create our brim. So first thing we're going to do is, per the directions, we've ended this ribbing section with 2 rounds of the color 1. So, and it's the color 1 that's going to continue the rest of the hat. The next thing we want to do is we want to cut off the ends of our colors 2 and 3. So I'm just going to leave a little bit of an end, cut it off, make sure that's tugged, and then I'm going to come back down to these ends and just cut them so they're fairly short, because we're going to be tucking in all of these ends into the inside the brim. So we're done with those colors 2 and 3. We're left with, don't need our scissors anymore. We're left with, this is our hat main body color. In this case, it's going to be natural. And now we want to get rid of the provisional cast on, and get these live stitches on our smaller needle. So, well, that was frustrating. I went to put all the videos together in this very important part video where I had stopped to show you how to unfurl the provisional cast on and change to the small needle. Yeah, it didn't record. So I'm on to plan B, because it doesn't matter if it's this little tiny swatch or your hat, it's the same. So here we are. We have our provisional. I went and made a tiny provisional cast on and knit a few rows. Well, I did just knit and purled a few rows. And so here's how we're going to handle the provisional cast on and get these live needles. So you're just going to have to pretend this is your hat, this was your working needle, and these are those same provisional stitches like you cast on. And what we want to look for is the rounded end of the chain, crochet chain. So like if I, whoops, I had it upside down. Oh, wait a minute. I got to do one more row. I'll just do that quickly. So I had it on the back, the wrong side. You need the right side, just like you'll need the right side for your hat. So let me get us there on this little tiny, super tiny little swatch. Knit this wrong side quickly. Okay, we're done. Okay, so first thing is you want to be looking at the right side of your work, and that's the chain is going to lay lovely. How did I know it wasn't the right side? Well, look how you can see where my thread or yarn there for my working project. So you want where you can see all of the cast on. When that was creating a shadow. All right, so there's all of the cast on, and then I want to pull. See how those crochet stitches are rounded at one end and pointy at the other? So you always want to make sure that you're starting with the rounded end. And if it was over here or over here, it doesn't really matter. That's how you've got to unfurl the stitches. So my rounded end ended up at this end, and I'm going to undo the knot where I just pulled through from when I cast on and had a few extra strange stitches. And when I pull that through, oh, this exciting thing happens. I think this is so satisfying. You start to pull, and when you pull, oh my gosh, you reveal your live stitches. So I'll take my smaller needle, like you're going to do with your hat, and I'm going to put them through these live stitches. I want here is the stitch. I want the right leg facing the front and the left leg facing the back. And I just do a few at a time. So I'll take out a few more of these, and there's 3 more stitches. I'll put on my needle just like that, and then I'll just take out the final ones. There's one more and one more, and there we go. I got them all, and so there I did it. I have all my stitches that are put on that needle, and if it happens that this is my working yarn and this is where I just am gonna end up and negotiate my needles so that I have both of them starting where they need to go in order to fold and do the brim. So that's the next video coming. Apologies for the lost recorded of the actual little hat sample, but it's the same whether you were doing a little tiny piece like this or your hat. Okay, I have this now ready to go. I have all those provisional stitches on the smaller needle, and the working yarn is here at the top. So there's my working yarn, my larger needle, and what I'm going to do now is fold under, and we want to get these points so that they're foldable under. I want to fold my brim in half with the wrong sides coming together. Here we go. But I've got to get my ends of that provisional cast on needle, there we go, to the inside of the work. And then I'm going to line these up. And then I'm going to look for any of my little ends and maybe give them an extra little tug, lay them. See how I've laid them? I tugged these at the working yarn, and I'm going to lay them, and I'm going to give these all a little tug at the beginning, and I'm going to lay those. So they're all laid in there, nice and hidden. Okay, and now this is all folded. Again, my little brim is very mini because I'm just trying to show you how to do this technique. Okay, so my larger needle, the working yarn, is to the outside. My smaller needle is to the inside. And we are going to use the larger needle. So we can kind of forget this right needle of the inside provisional cast on circular needle set. That can just be kind of pulled and let hang. We're going to work off of these two needles, the left needles of both the working yarn and the provisional cast on, as if they were one needle basically. And then my larger needle from the working yarn is going to function as the right hand needle. And I'm going to go into one stitch from the working needle, one stitch from the provisional needle, and just simply knit, and both those stitches come off. So one stitch from the front, one stitch from the back, knit, and both those stitches come off their needles. So now I have two knit stitches, and I've closed my brim with those two stitches. And I'm going to continue this all the way around. Two knits, one stitch from each needle. Make sure they come off the needle, both of them. One stitch from each needle. They come off. And I'm just going to do this all the way around. So I'm basically binding off the back needle as I work, or the stitch on the back needle as I work the stitch on the front needle. Just situating my folded part, and it's a little bit easier. You'll have just one, I made this circle just as small as I could so I could get this demo video done. So your circle would be larger, that'll be a little easier. Also, this is wider, that's going to be a little easier. So not that this is hard, it's just yeah, you have a little bit more to work with in the actual hat. And again, both those stitches came off. I don't know, I love provisional stitches. When I did, pulled that chain in doing this, and every time I do that, there is something so satisfying about pulling that chain and having those live stitches there ready to do a cool thing. And this cool thing is to create this brim. So whoever thought of the provisional stitches, and there's, again, I know I told you that earlier, but lots of ways you can do provisional stitches. Pretty brilliant because it lets you design, you know, picking up yarn from when you started that otherwise would have been, you know, bound off from your beginning cast on. Okay, well, I don't need to do all of this for you, so I'm just gonna finish this and then I'll get you started on the rest of the hat, and then from then on I think it's pretty straightforward, because you're just going to be knitting. I will go through that first row with you on because then we're going to transfer off of these size 3 needles that we're working with and work then the hat stitches itself on the size 2 needle. It just makes such a nicer fabric with that stockinette stitch. On this on this tweed pattern, having a size 3 just made that, you know, just that little bit of a larger needle made working the tweed more enjoyable. I tested it with working them both in the smaller size needle, and the tweed was harder and it just wasn't as enjoyable. And so part of when you're making a pattern, I try to think about, well, is this going to be enjoyable? And if it's not, what is some other alternative in getting the same design? Plus, I kind of liked better how the larger, you know, it's just a little bit larger tweed. I thought the tweed stood out better, but I really like the fabric of the size 2 needle for the rest of the hat. It just makes a nicer fabric for your finished hat piece. Okay, I'll pause again and then we'll come back with, I'll go ahead and finish this round. But here you can see on my back, there's the worked in the natural and the join, and there's, you know, how your tweed's going to sit all folded and beautiful and ready to be the brim of your hat. I'll be back with that, swapping the stockinette part of the hat, switching again to the smaller needle, and then that first row of increases. Okay, I'm at the end. I've combined all my stitches, and I have still have this yarn from when I cast on in the beginning that's sticking up. All I'm going to do is get that guy tucked inside that brim. I want it in the brim. Just using the other needle to get that little guy stuck in the brim. If by chance, for some reason, you don't have the same number of stitches on the back and the right, or the back and the front needles, just complete all you can, and then stitch the final stitches, and then do a count, and you can make up for that count of stitches, because it's likely only to be like one off if it's off. Well, I would just make sure, okay, I got that tucked in. I would just make sure that you didn't miss any stitches, so that there's a live stitch hanging somewhere that can unravel. And then if for some reason you didn't, okay, I didn't miss any stitches, I mean, mine came out even together, but I would just go around now and count, and then make note of that, because in the next row, and I'm going to get my smaller needle back then, in the next row, as we switch to the smaller needle and start knitting the hat, you can make up for any lost or additional stitches you have in that count by adjusting what you increase. So for example, in the hat A, all of the sizes will have increases. The size A, the smallest size, has 14 stitches of increase to get you to 146 or 140 stitches. and that's 14 more than when you ended here, so it should have been 126 stitches if you have that size. If I ended up with 127 stitches, then just don't do one of the increases, and you'll be back to the number of stitches you needed. So I got that end tucked in. Here's my smaller needle now, and what it says to do is knit 8. So I'm going to knit 8, and notice how I'm using the small needle as my right needle, and that's as the process of knitting happens here in this round. It will mean that I get rid of the large needle and all the stitches get transferred to the small needle. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then it says make one through the back loop. Oh, I'm sorry, make one below. Make M1B, make one below. So I'm going to go down into the stitch below, make one. So in other words, knit in the stitch below, and then knit that stitch. And that was my first increase. So then it says repeat, and I'm going to do 8 more stitches. And I just lost count, so there was my 2 for my increase, so that I did 4 stitches now. 5, 6, 7, 8, and again, here's my increase. I'm going to go down in the stitch below, knit it, and then knit the stitch off the needle, and I've done my increase. That continues all the way around, and then it's just happy knitting from then on. When you do decreases, it's a simple knit 2 together. So when you get up to the top third of your hat, you're going to start the decreases. Decreases are done just simply by knitting 2 stitches together. So I put my needle through 2 stitches and like this, and knit them together, and off they go. But that's later on in the hat. And then the final finishing is when you get to the very top and you only have a few stitches left, you just take that needle that it talks about in the directions, and you take the needle and you go through all the remaining hoop loops. Maybe there's 8, or what does it say? How many? I'm going to look at the pattern. How many get left at the end? You have 9 stitches left at the end, 8 or 9 stitches, and you just take your needle and you go through all those stitches and pull your yarn and tie it off in the back inside, and you're good to go. So there you go, folks. That was your self-led KAL for the Tweel Brim Hat. I hope you love it. I hope you love making it, wearing it. When you finish it, you want to wash it, because your garments or accessories are never done with our yarn until you've washed them the first time. So I'm just going to soak my hat in some cool water, maybe use a little shampoo, mild shampoo or mild dish soap. Let it soak for 10-20 minutes, and then drain that water and put more water in and slosh it and rinse all the soap out. And make sure then it's rinsed out nicely. And then I'm going to gently squeeze, roll in the towel, flatten my hat and roll it in a towel, squeeze it out, and then I just lay my hat flat to dry, and you're going to have a beautiful hat to wear. Thanks a lot. Any questions? You can always reach us or me, the designer, Amy at junecashmere.com or info@junecashmere.com. Happy knitting.